of Queer Ontario. He was an organizer of the first national gay rights demonstration, which took place on Parliament Hill in Ottawa in 1971. John is based in Toronto, is a leading member of Socialist Action, and is the author of many articles on the SA website. So, welcome, John. You have 15 minutes, comrade.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to start off by describing how I became a revolutionary socialist. Like many of you, I was a refugee from social democratic reformism and opportunism, cynicism, and from the stifling conformity of the 1950s. It's important to remember that when I was a teenager, the culture and politics were a lot more reactionary than they are now in society. A queer teenager, as I was, had an even more difficult life than now, and so did most women. McCarthyism was universal, and the general atmosphere heavily repressive. In 1954, I joined the CCF youth group in Ottawa, prompted by Peter Schultz, a close friend when I was in elementary school and after. This was my beginning in left politics. The Cooperative Commonwealth Federation was the predecessor of the NDP, with which our youth group was affiliated. Peter and I both loved the Rubina Manifesto, the founding program of the CCF, which stated that the ultimate goal was the eradication of capitalism. Actually, that was the only really perfect part.
Good nonetheless.
Our illusions about the CCF did not last long. In 1956, the CCF dumped the manifesto and replaced it with the Winnipeg Declaration, a stridently referendist document. Quite nauseating, actually. Both Peter and I were furious and started looking outside the CCF. I don't recall how Peter initially contacted Ross Dawson, the leader of the Socialist Educational League, possibly through finding the Labour bookstore. Anyhow, Peter acquired some literature and copies of the Workers' Vanguard, the organization's paper. We were both very impressed. At that time, I supported the USSR because I thought it was as advertised. But I'd always had some nagging doubts. When I read an excellent pamphlet written by an Indian comrade, Nand Mishra, about Stalinism, everything fell into place. That was the definitive end to my Stalinist period, if you can call it that. I moved to Toronto to join the SEL and in July 1959. It changed my life. So let's switch over here. My family background probably contributed to my political direction. Both my father, a civil servant who worked for the Auditor General, and my mother, a housewife who had an office job while single, were not politically active, but quite willing to express indignation over injustices that they saw. My father, oh yes. Okay, both were religious. My father was very suspicious of the clergy. I finally was able to convince him to support the NDP. My mother got there on her own. Her family was from Northern Ireland, Protestant background, and quite prejudiced. And my mother was not at all. Quite the opposite. I remember that she befriended the only Quebecois woman on our block who lived in down Ottawa, and was the only one to do so. Both my parents were prepared to be rebellious if they got angry about something, which was unusual in the 50s and early 60s. Well, I'm still gay, if a bit removed from being a teenager. Because you made a figure. Okay, the movement, the gay liberation movement was quite different from what you see today. Its leaders and most of its members are from working class backgrounds, quite unlike the self-appointed leaders of today's LGBTQ establishment. Many were from the campuses, like most of the early organizations were. Demonstrations were few and far between at that time because the movement was still quite small, and a lot of people faced serious problems out of the corporate media. One event helped break that down. In August 1971, I was part of the first gay demonstration on Parliament Hill. There were about 125 people there. It was called by Toronto Gay Action, in which I was a member, a rank-and-file activist group, and endorsed by other groups. Its purpose was to present We Demand, a 13-page document which presented demands for civil rights and the abolition of anti-gay legislation and practices. Its authors were Brian White, an LSA member actually, and Sherry DeNovo, who you may have heard of. It took a long time to realize them. The last demand to make the age of consent the same for homosexuals and heterosexuals was in 2019. The Liberals, then as now, were never in a hurry except to pass strike-breaking laws. And of course, the Liberals were in time most of the time. In 1975, John Damian, a racing steward, was fired by the Racing Commission because he was gay. With the support of Toronto Gay Alliance Toward Equality, we filed a lawsuit against the racing honchos and the government ministry responsible for wrongful dismissal and other for damages. The Ontario Human Rights Commission refused to investigate because sexual orientation wasn't in the Act. This case, initially supported by gay organizations and allies, became famous in Canada and internationally, especially for lawyers, because it centered on the issue of sexual orientation and employment. The public inclusion of sexual orientation in the OHRC, the Ontario Human Rights Code, a very key gain for gay and lesbian rights 20 years later. John died of pancreatic cancer in 1995, but at least before that he was still with us to see it happen. My late partner Bill and I had the pleasure of knowing him better because for some years I was chair of the committee, and he rented a place quite close to us. Okay, go back. So the speech is written out in different places for reasons I won't go into. Okay. One of the most important tools that we have is the United Front. It is responsible for many major victories with the revolutionary left. Let's look at some examples. The international anti-war movement that ended the Vietnam War is one of the most important. Trotsky has played a major leadership role in the US, Canada, and Britain, and other countries through the use of this tactic and the implementation of clear and simple slogans. In Canada, out now, and in Canada's complicity in the war, our immediate predecessor of the League for Socialist Action, LSA, played a major role in the Canadian anti-war movement. Even more so, the Socialist Workers' Party and the Belly of the Monster. I would urge everyone who hasn't read the book out now by Fred Halstead to get it. Halstead was both a leader of the SWP and very prominent in the anti-war movement. Getting into our own timeline, the Socialist Caucus, which is organized on United Front principles, anyone can join who wants the NDP to go left, has major accomplishments to its credit. After years of work on its part, the ONDP finally passed a pro-Palestinian resolution, even though it was relatively weak. For many years, the apparatus controlled the resolutions committee, and still does, whose main job is to keep left resolutions off the floor. Years ago, a federal NDP convention actually passed a resolution calling for Canada to get out of NATO. The Parliamentary Caucus and the apparatus ignored the resolution for years until they could get rid of it by administrative chicanery. WAM, Workers' Action Movement, is also based on United Front principles. WAM ran candidates in the CLC convention and the OFL. At the OFL, two of its candidates got high votes, one at 37% and one at 33.5%. The Municipal Socialist Alliance is another example. It ran candidates in municipal elections and will likely do so again. Our party members are free to form talk about the Revolutionary Party in general. An essential characteristic of a revolutionary party is what is called democratic centralism, referring to the practice of the Bolsheviks, the first revolutionary Marxist party. We discuss, debate, then go to a democratic decision of the membership. Then unity in action is paramount, respecting the authority of the majority of the membership. Members are always free to express differences and demand discussion internally, but not to express differences in public. Policy remains policy until it is changed. Building a revolutionary party is not easy. Failures are numerous. As recent scandals on the left show, lack of democracy can be fatal. The Revolutionary Party is a collective of activist members. It's not a random collective of party members. We require some level of activity from our members. How would you like it if members who are not active come to a meeting and take over? That happens frequently in the NDP.
Exactly.
Yeah. A few years ago, when left activists took over the leadership of the New Democratic Youth in Ontario, the subsequent meeting was swamped by unknown attendees, mobilized by staff. More likely than not, most of these people will never be seen again. The only positive aspect of an outrageously anti-democratic operation by the leadership. The apparatus pulls the same stunt at conventions, sometimes bringing busloads of people in to win votes. No. Okay, the necessity of the Revolutionary Party today, like capitalism, has never been more evident. As Marxists, we support reforms and will struggle for them, but are not under the illusion that they will be permanent or achieve major social change. The advent of neoliberalism and its imposition on all capitalist societies on the planet has demonstrated that decisively. In one country after another, social welfare systems have been gutted. Privatization is mandatory. For a country to join the European Union, it must first commit to privatization of its public services and to plan its budgeting according to EU dictates.
3 minutes.
Look at what?
3.
Oh, okay. Look at the way they do in Greece. No wonder leftists in Europe call it Europe Incorporated. An essential characteristics of a revolutionary party is what is called democratic centralism, referring to the practice of the Bolsheviks, the first revolutionary Marxist party. Well, I think I said this already.
Still sounds good.
Okay, well, we're close to the end anyway. So, one of the things, of course, about the Revolutionary Party is that
So we can hear you online.
Closer to the mic.
Speaking to the mic.
Closer to the mic.
Oh,
Just a
okay.
little bit more to the mic, yeah.
Yeah. One of the decisive features about the Revolutionary Party is that the leadership is required to follow convention positions and follow party policy. But not so in the NDP, but I've seen most of you guess that already. So I guess that's it for me for now.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much, comrade. Okay, so our next speaker is Rubina Chowdhury. Is a feminist.
Yes,
Testing. Just testing the mic.
testing the mic is working, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just a second, I haven't introduced you yet, comrade. We don't know who you are yet. Okay, so Rubina is a feminist activist and writer, born in Bangladesh. As a social worker, she experienced the sufferings of women. Rubina is associated with two magazines of the Toronto Rape Crisis Centre, Power of Voices as a writer, and Cleavage as an editor. Currently, she writes short stories in Bengali, focusing on feminist and mental health issues, and translates poems and stories from English to Bengali. Rubina is the Socialist Action Toronto Region organizer. Go ahead, Rubina, 15 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you for everyone for being here today. I'm honored to speak with you about what it means to be a revolutionary socialist, the role of socialist action, and the change we are fighting for. So, what does it mean to be a revolutionary socialist? It means we believe that real change comes when we challenge the very system that creates inequality, oppression, and environmental destruction. It means that we do not accept a world where profits are put over people, where working class communities, women, indigenous people, and people of color, people with disabilities, continue to be exploited. Revolutionary socialists fight for a world where power is in the hands of the people, where democracy isn't just an empty word, but a reality for everyone. To be a revolutionary socialist is to believe in the transformative power of collective struggle. We are fighting for a world free from capitalism, imperialism, and all forms of exploitation, where solidarity and equality guide the actions we take. It means standing up for workers, for those marginalized, for our environment, and for those whose voices have been silenced for too long. So my personal experience to join in SA in 2020, I attended a May Day online rally where I met participants from many Toronto revolutionary parties and union members. Our comrade, nice comrade, Julius, was the speaker of an essay, and he provided the web link in the chat. I was intended to join in a revolutionary party since I moved to Canada. I was busy with family and life. Gradually, my children grew up, and I felt the right time to join and to be engaged into community as a revolutionary activist, besides being a social service worker. This journey goes two ways. I'm learning from everyone, and I'm bringing my own experiences of a struggle as an immigrant, woman of color, which I also used as a social service worker in violence against women field. Every day I grew with survivors of sexual abuse and domestic abuse survivors in Toronto Rape Crisis Center, where I am a sexual violence counselor, and with women who flee from domestic violence in a women's shelter where I worked as a caseworker. I quit from that second job. But as a counselor, I work with survivors on their post-situation effect of the event happened in their life. When women go through mental health illnesses like PTSD after experiences of abusive event, but how we can reduce the root causes of violence against women in our society. We know the reasons are patriarchal, women's economic condition for gender role, gender inequality in workplace, pay gap, but what is the solution to prevent or at least reduce it? How we can send messages to the society where men can grow with dignity to respect women. Revolutionary movement can make a difference in families, in educational institutes, and other converge areas in our society, like especially legal system. That's what we need. Revolutionary movement means to me a total change into society and world with the power of workers, power of equality and equity, man and woman, respecting each other by abolishing class inequalities, racism, and homophobia. So this year, after 3 years, I joined in the party, this Revolutionary Party Socialist Action. I took the responsibility of the Toronto organizers post. A new journey began. My personal experiences in Socialist Action is a constant learning process, a transformation from VAW worker to political activist, and became confident to portray and pursue almost every day on phone, on the street, to support other activists, especially Palestine's freedom movement, picketing, attending other socialist parties' events, such as Kurdish Socialist Party's social gathering as a speaker. I often communicate with other organizations. Some of my dearest young comrades address me, Momrade, in the march for my natural motherly affectionate behavior. I understand that. Many of them are my children's friend, but it makes me proud as well and feel accomplished as a woman, a worker of VAW, and mother, and as an activist. Motherhood is a power. It's a struggle though, but it is a power with love and care. My revolutionary learning process and activities reflected on my children, and they are also active in revolutionary movement. Working in a revolutionary party is a different experience than working in a community services. Both are grassroots movement, but in a socialist party, acceptance is genuine and very easygoing for me. No one is judgmental for my English accent, but in a social services field, obviously it is different. The most significant to being a part of a revolutionary party is to learn to fight unitedly. Unity makes people strong and confidently hopeful for future. At Socialist Action, we don't just talk about these ideas, we live them. We are committed to proletarian feminism, which means we fight for women's liberation in the context of class struggle. For us, feminism isn't just about achieving individual rights or equality in the current system. It's about understanding that women's oppression is directly tied to capitalism, patriarchy, and exploitation of labor. We fight for economic and social systems that ensure equality for all women, especially those most oppressed, working class women. homemaker women, indigenous women, black women, immigrant women, and migrant workers women. Our feminism is intersectional. It recognizes that the struggles for gender equality, racial justice, and class liberation are interconnected. When we fight for women's rights, we also fight for the rights of indigenous people, for the rights of workers, and for the rights of those who face systemic racism. This is why we stand in solidarity with indigenous communities in their struggle for land, self-determination, and justice. The fight for indigenous sovereignty is a fight against colonialism, and it's a central part of our socialist vision. We cannot talk about liberation without addressing the ongoing struggles of indigenous people whose land and rights have been stolen and whose cultures have been suppressed. Indigenous communities have always been at the forefront of resistance, and we are committed to supporting their fight for justice. In addition to our commitment to feminism and indigenous struggles, Socialist Action engages in political transformation from within the institution. This is why we engage with the New Democratic Party, not as a passive supporter, but as active participants pushing for meaningful change. We don't just want NDP to be a party of good intention. We want it to be a party that champions workers' rights, environmental justice, and social equality, fighting against the capitalist forces that hold us back. Through our engagement, we have seen the power of conflictual participation, where we push from within to make the NDP more accountable and more focused on working class interests. We also believe in the power of education and action through our forums, annual schools like the Trotsky School, and regular webcast. We educate our members and broader public on how to advance socialist ideas. We believe that real change starts when people are empowered with knowledge and understanding of the systems they are fighting against. But our fight is not limited to Canada. Solidarity doesn't stop at the border. We are proud to support the struggles for justice around the world, from Palestine to Venezuela, and we stand with indigenous people worldwide in their fight against colonization and oppression. We have been active in organizing on the ground, from rallies for free public transit to labor rights to anti-racist protest. But we also take part in long-term political work. It's not just about marching today, it's about building the kind of movement that can bring about systemic change. We have won positions within unions and the NDP on platforms that demand action for the working class and oppressed communities. This shows that even as a small organization, we can make a big impact when we stick to our principles and work in solidarity with others. To sum it up, being a revolutionary socialist means working for a world where wealth and power are not concentrated in the hand of few. It means fighting for economic justice, gender equality, and racial justice. It means standing with indigenous communities in their struggle for land and sovereignty. It means organizing from below and pushing from within to transform institutions that uphold capitalism and inequality.
2 minutes.
The future we want to build, one that's just, equitable, and sustainable, can only be achieved through collective action and revolutionary change. Together, we can build that future. As long as we all workers are oppressed, we will keep continuing together to fight achieving, take over the power from bourgeoisie. We will never stop to stand beside a person like Sarazama or a campaigning group like Samidun. We will not stop our voices or our activities on the street or in person or online as long as repression continues. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Comrade Ann Kamath. She's based in Windsor, Ontario. She worked in the tech industry for the last 17 years, currently works from home, and attended the Windsor for Palestine protests every Sunday and is very vocal for Indigenous rights and the land back movement. She became aware of socialist action while searching for alternatives to the NDP that align more with her views. Ann.
Thank you so much. As Elizabeth mentioned, in Windsor, Ontario, this is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabeg people of the Three Fires of the Confederacy. That's the Ojibwe, the Potawatomi, and the Odawa. I apologize if I butchered any of those. Together, I want to explore today a massive issue that affects us all. It's the limitations of capitalism and the urgent need for a socialist alternative. Capitalism is headed to a dead end. It's an economic system that fails to meet human needs or to safeguard nature. Consider why this system is failing, what it will take to overcome it, and the crucial role a disciplined revolutionary working class party like Socialist Action must play in the socialist transformation of society. Capitalism at its core is defined by the relentless pursuit of profit. While it has produced technological advancements and economic growth, the benefits have come at a staggering cost. Today, we witness stark inequalities. The richest 1% possess more wealth than the bottom half of the global population. This concentration of wealth leads to major social discontent and undermines our very limited democracy, because those with big money wield disproportionate influence over the political process. Capitalism's inherent contradictions are becoming increasingly apparent. Economic crises are a reoccurring theme, whether it's the 2008 financial meltdown or the disruptions prompted by the COVID pandemic. These crises highlight the system's pitfalls and the inability to provide stability for workers. The pandemic exposed a reliance on precarious labor and the inadequate social safety net, leaving millions without support while corporations amassed record profits. As we confront climate change, the urgency of these contradictions deepens. Capitalism treats the environment as an expendable resource, a misconception that contributes to the ecological devastation. This system is incapable of enacting the profound changes necessary to avert a climate catastrophe. Evidence is clear. Capitalism leads us to a dead end, where human development and ecological health are sacrificed on the altar of profit. To overcome capitalism, we must envision and actively pursue a socialist alternative that provides human needs, ecological sustainability, and social justice. At the heart of this transformation lies recognition of the power of the working class. History has demonstrated time and time again that significant change arises from collective action. When workers unite, through strikes, protests, and organized movements, they assert their demands for dignity and justice. Collective consciousness is crucial. It empowers individuals to see beyond their immediate struggles and to recognize their strength as part of a larger movement for systemic change. Equally important is the principle of international solidarity. Capitalism is a global system that transcends national boundaries. The challenges we face are interconnected. Workers in one country must stand in solidarity with their counterparts around the world, recognizing that our fates are intertwined. When workers unite across borders, they amplify their voices and they create a formidable force against oppression and exploitation. International solidarity fosters a shared commitment to dismantling capitalism and building a better world for all. A key aspect of the socialist vision involves the democratic control of resources and production. Essential sectors such as healthcare, education, and energy should not be governed by profit motives, but rather ought to be run democratically to serve the collective needs of society. By placing these industries in public hands, we can ensure that they are accountable to the people, prioritizing access and equality over profit. This shift would fundamentally reshape our economy, allowing us to create a system that fosters human well-being and community resilience. Finally, the ecological crisis demands that we integrate sustainability into our socialist vision. Capitalism has long treated the environment as a dispensable resource, contributing to climate change and ecological degradation. A sustainable future requires us to reimagine our relationship with the environment, planning our economy with ecological health in mind. This means investing in renewable energy, promoting sustainable agriculture, and prioritizing conservation efforts. By aligning our economic practices with ecological principles, we can foster harmony between society and the planet, ensuring a livable world for future generations. In essence, the path to overcome capitalism involves a multifaceted approach that emphasizes class struggle, international solidarity, democratic control, and ecological sustainability. By uniting these principles, we can forge a transformative movement capable of challenging the capitalist system and building a socialist future that prioritizes the needs of the people and the planet. For a solid 20 plus years, from the time I was a fresh-faced 18-year-old to a slightly more seasoned 40-ish something, I was a dedicated supporter. We won't go there. I was a dedicated supporter of the NDP, somewhat inspired by the vision of Jack Layton. His ability to connect with people and advocate for social justice sparked my passion for politics. I engaged in local campaigns, attended rallies, and truly believed that the NDP was the pathway to meaningful change. However, everything shifted dramatically when MPP Sarah Jama was removed from the caucus of the NDP MPPs at Queen's Park after bravely speaking out about the Zionist genocide against Palestinians. This wasn't a minor political maneuver. It seemed like a blatant attempt to silence a critical voice on an issue that impacts millions. The more I learned, the more it became clear that this kind of silencing was not an isolated incident. Sarah is still facing repercussions for her outspoken views, and it's a troubling trend that goes against the very principles of democratic representation. Disillusioned, I began to reevaluate my political loyalties. In my quest for a party that truly aligned with my beliefs, I dove into research and came across Socialist Action. Intrigued, I reached out to its federal secretary, Barry. Our conversation turned into a marathon discussion that lasted hours. It was a breath of fresh air. We delved into everything from capitalism's failings to the importance of organized labor, and I realized that I was chatting with someone who really understood the depth of these issues. I was enlightened to exchange. This enlightening exchange made it clear that I needed to find a political home where my values were not only welcomed but celebrated. As I learned more about Socialist Action Canada's principles, I felt an undeniable sense of belonging. It was like discovering a secret menu item that was actually what I'd been craving all along. This realization solidified my decision to join the party, committing myself to the fight for a more equitable and just society. One where critical voices like Sarah Jama's are not just heard, but amplified, and where I can finally feel like I'm a part of a movement that truly reflects my convictions. It also connected with my own experiences as a person contending with physical challenges due to some health diagnoses. Up against a class system that subordinates the needs of the many to big profits for the few. This has also inspired me to join along with organizations or committees such as the Socialist Caucus NDP, or the NDP Socialist Caucus, and that has inspired me to join the People Living with Disabilities Committee through the NDP, as well as the Women's Committee. So that's where that has gone. And here in Windsor, I've joined organizations such as Windsor for Palestine, and being very vocal, and also Code Pink Ontario, working towards feminist goals as well. The role of a revolutionary party such as Socialist Action Canada is crucial in the fight against capitalism and for the advancement of a socialist future. One of its primary functions is to provide political education and organization to the working class by offering a clear analysis of the capitalist system and its inherent contradictions. Party helps foster a collective consciousness among workers. This education empowers individuals to understand their own potential for change and to encourage them to engage actively in the struggle for social justice. Strategic leadership is another vital aspect of a revolutionaries party role. In moments of crisis, when social tensions are heightened and the stakes are high, effective leadership can make a significant difference. A disciplined party articulates a coherent vision and highlights the concrete demands that resonate with the needs of workers. By coordinating actions and mobilizing support, the party can reduce fragmentation within the movement and ensure that efforts are being directed towards common goals. This strategic guidance not only enhances the effectiveness of grassroots initiatives, but it also helps maintain momentum in the face of opposition. Furthermore, a revolutionary party must embody democratic principles, both in its internal structure and in its external actions. It should prioritize accountability to the working class, foster an inclusive environment where participation and debate are encouraged. This commitment to democracy strengthens the party's legitimacy and builds trust amongst its members, ensuring that it reflects the diverse needs and desires of the working people. By facilitating democratic processes, the party can cultivate a culture of collaboration and empowerment that is essential for building a mass vanguard with a broader popular movement. Finally, the party plays a crucial role in bridging the gap between the most politically conscious workers and the broader movement. By organizing diverse, united front campaigns, a revolutionary party can harness the collective strength of the working class, uniting various political tendencies and grassroots struggles into a cohesive force capable of eradicating the capitalist system. In conclusion, the evidence is clear. Capitalism is a dead end, failing to address the fundamental needs of humanity in harmony with nature. However, by embracing the principles of class struggle, international solidarity, democratic control, and ecological sustainability, we can chart a new path forward. A revolutionary working class party such as Socialist Action Canada is essential in this fight, and we strive to provide the organization, strategy, and leadership needed to unite the working class and forge a path to the socialist future. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Anne. Okay, our next speaker is DB. He's a French teacher in training, recently studying in Marseille, France. Upon returning to Canada, he participated in Palestine encampments and demonstrations at which Socialist Action was present. DB speaks 3 languages and is 19 years old and lives in Whitby, Ontario. DB.
Thank you. Now I'm 20 actually. I just turned 20 in August, but yes, when I joined SA, I was 19.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, although it's 2.5 months late for that, but nonetheless. Okay, so can everyone hear me? Am I audible? Great. So first of all, I must thank Barry for giving me the opportunity to speak here. When I was in communication with him about it, I was, initially really surprised that, I was chosen. I'm only 20. What do I have to talk about? What have I really seen in comparison? And listening to speeches from Rubina, for example, and all of her experience, I really felt like I didn't have, all that much in comparison. But I realized, how do I say this? It's not necessarily about the destination. The journey is also what impacts you. And this is what I was focusing on when I was preparing my speech in the days before. I was mainly focusing on the journey that led me to revolutionary socialism. So when Barry was telling me that he wanted me to speak about what it means to be a revolutionary socialist, this question was in my head for days. What does it mean to be a revolutionary socialist? And I was thinking of so many different ways that I could phrase this, so many different ways I could explain this. But eventually it dawned on me that for me at least, and obviously everyone else will have a different perspective, for me being a revolutionary socialist has meant that you do not accept what you are given without saying we can do better than that. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So I didn't grow up in a political family. I basically discovered stuff in a bottom-up way. And, growing up, I had a normal childhood. I played with my friends, went to school. Anything a child would do, I did and enjoyed. But there were some things which, as I said earlier, I didn't want to accept. For a large period of my childhood, when my parents were divorced, my dad was going through some very hard financial some situations. And as a result, among other things, we would have to ride the bus everywhere. This in and of itself, is not a problem. I just came here on public transit, for example. But what the problem was, what I remember very distinctly as a child being so horrified and confused at, was having to pay every time flat fee regardless of how long you went, regardless of where you're going. And then when my dad finally got a car, I was amazed to see, oh wow, well, we can just go anywhere. We don't have to pay every single time. It's so much more convenient. Obviously back then, the environmental impact of driving, gas, and emissions didn't register with me. But looking back at it over the years, I've come to realize, what kind of a society can you have where people trying to take the more eco-friendly, the more collective, and the more sustainable way are the ones who really have to pay with their wallets, and driving doesn't have to be as expensive or as cumbersome for the additional privilege of destroying our environment and making the rich richer with things like the Volkswagen scandal, whereas our government is consistently underfunding public transit and making riders pay. This was one of the main things I heard about and did not want to accept as I'm a child. Thank you all. Thank you. I could give so many other more examples from Canada, but I did want to talk a bit about other things I've seen abroad that made me realize, okay, this is, not an acceptable reality we're living in. I cannot, stand down while this is happening. I will not stand down while this is happening. And one of the main examples of this was when I went to Lebanon, which is a beautiful country, has so many nice things that I can say about it, but obviously things are very bad in Lebanon right now, what with not only the endless Israeli aggression, but the crippling economic and general crisis that has taken the country for the last 6 years as a result of extreme neoliberalism and corrupt policies. Essentially, in Lebanon, the way is such that you cannot, and I mean cannot, have a decent life if you're not absolutely guaranteed something through capitalism, through paying bribes, through all these sorts of things, because that's how neoliberalism functions. The old don't have pensions, there's no guaranteed state electricity, the banks ate everyone's money, there's no cellular network, and it is ranked as the most corrupt country in the Middle East. I realized that nobody can even manage to survive, let alone prosper, and think, okay, well, how can we, improve our own situation with this? So that's the other problem. When you're in such horrific conditions due to extreme capitalism and neoliberalism, you cannot even find the time in your day to think, how can we improve our situation? How can we demand better for ourselves? You're so focused on scraping by. So that's the really vicious cycle I realized. And as a contrast, thank you for mentioning I went to France, by the way. As a contrast to that, when I later went to France after Lebanon, I saw that despite France saying how rich and wealthy it was, there were still so many poor people everywhere, so many people who, didn't have enough to eat, who were begging in the streets. There were always public transit inspections happening because, people who can't afford a car will still have to go places. They'll still have to ride transit. yet they'll be aggressively and repeatedly fined. Whereas France presents itself as a rich, beautiful, developed, civilized country in their almost neighbor Algeria, which is seen as, a backwater everyone wants to get out, which is true to an extent, but I'll get into that in a sec. They have it much better when it comes to meeting the basic needs of the people, just because some socialist policies were implemented only 60 years ago, and even though they haven't really been implemented to the full extent since then, it shows today there's almost equal human development between regions. In Algeria, for example, which I was so interested to hear about when there's in France, there's such massive inequality even between different regions of the same département. Moreover, the fact that there's free and subsidized university education up to the PhD level, even in Algeria, which is a much poorer country than France, you still have to pay in France to get your, future guaranteed through education. So it's all these sorts of things that made me realize this capitalistic system, this neoliberal system, where you claw your way up with gold-gilded fingers, so to speak, because you keep scraping on our, our walls coated in money, our air where we breathe in and we breathe out money, so to speak. I'm using weird metaphors, but this is basically how I'm seeing it. You cannot get ahead in this world without immersing yourself in the dirty system that we're in. Now, as how I realized that this, dirty system is not the way I joined SA, like you said, I was involved in many Palestine movements, encampments, and such, and after they were done and concluded, I thought, okay, we can't just, take this line down. We can't accept that we've been evicted. This is not what organizing is all about, when you realize that you're done and you're going to stop. So I was at a demonstration. I found Barry with this lovely banner, holding it up, Smash Israeli Apartheid, an iconic banner. And I got to chatting with him. He sold me some buttons, and he was mentioning things about how another party that I was involved with, the RCP, had critical flaws in their program in regards to BDS. I'm very lucky that the group of RCP members I was involved with did not share these views on BDS. Fingers crossed, because we should all be in favor of BDS. Whoever's not in favor of BDS is doing something very, very wrong. Thank you. And Barry arranged several phone calls for me. He was more than happy to educate me on the party program. And what I particularly liked is the wealth of socialist action literature. As we can see over there, buy some literature, people. Also check out the Red Review if you haven't already done so, which I'm sure you all have. I really like the critical analysis and the rejection of our status quo and system that a lot of it is explaining in the literature, and particularly in Barry's August issue of the Red Review. These sorts of things are what keeps me interested, what keep me coming back, what keep me motivated to keep saying, hey, we deserve better, we can have a better future. We shouldn't just be taking this lying down. We can say, what the problem is and how and why we can fix it, rather than thinking, oh, no, it's not going to change. We just have to accept, for example, that Israel's been here for so long, they can get away with whatever they're doing. They can get all these endless weapons through the military-industrial complex from the U.S., whereas Barry wrote an excellent article rejecting this, explaining why it doesn't work. Again, this was one of the best things I ever read from SA. I really do not have enough praise for it. But yes, essentially, it really doesn't come down to much more than that on how I realize. Now, as for the implementation of this and being a revolutionary socialist in daily life, one of the things I noticed is that in our world where you have to get in this dirty system to get by, you cannot simply demand immediate change. This is why gradual things have to happen. This is why you must educate people. You cannot simply say, we must have this, and this, without explaining why it's necessary, without having public forums like these, without making your presence known, because a revolution does not work unless you show people why it has to work. This is one of the main reasons why so many people have such a terrible view of socialism and communism, which I'm glad was mentioned earlier in regards to being pro, Soviet Union versus not pro-Soviet Union, because they don't know what actually could be done and what we are standing for. And what I like about SA is that it's always very, very clear on what its stances are, on what needs to be done. It's always making its presence known and visible. And this is what's needed in our modern world, where we don't even have a clear view of what's going on because we're just too focused on getting our basic needs, hand to mouth, rent paid. Whereas SA is making the path clear. if you can understand what's going on around you, you can understand why the suffering you're experiencing and other people are experiencing on a daily basis is happening. Hint, hint, it's because the top dogs feel like they need to line their pockets more than lining our stomachs and the, stomachs of everyone else. Then you can work towards demanding a better future.
Wow.
Thank you.
Surprise, surprise.
I did cut it short because you said that we would need time for questions. I can go on if needed, but I figured there were questions. Yeah, because I heard that we were running late and stuff, so I chose to cut it at this point.
Give him a couple more minutes.
Well, sure, he can have what he wants. Did you hear me on the mic saying stop?
No, I just thought we needed time at the end for the questions.
Well, yes, we do. Let's see how many questions we get, and then you can add more as you go on.
Okay, I do have more, so I'll reserve it as needed.
I know, Dylan, you have lots more. Okay, all right. So we're going. Excuse me? Thank you. No, it's picked up everywhere, that's why, on the YouTube. Okay, so we're going to open the floor now, once I get back and see my audience here, comrades. Okay, so we're going to open for the Q&A, and I have John Wonderland. And you have 3 minutes, John.
Okay.
And remember, folks, I'm going to be taking 2 or 3 questions.
Pass this around.
Before you start, John, so the panel will know, I will be taking 3 questions if I get that many before I come back to you. So you have to write them down or remember them. Okay?
The video.
Your
You have to
choice.
switch it.
Okay, John, go ahead.
Okay.
You could
Can
just.
we stand back here? Sorry. It's got to be some AD stuff here for a second.
I'll just go voice only. You don't have.
Go ahead.
To me, being a revolutionary socialist starts with being a materialist, learning from history, understanding the current political moment, and an unwavering ability to ask, what does this mean for the working class, to every question. So with that in mind, I've got 2 questions for the panel. What is the top lesson or lessons you draw from the failures of 20th century socialism with respect to A, either organizing towards socialism, or B, building socialism once you're in power? And 2, how do you organize digitally on platforms that are controlled by billionaires, especially in light of the internet shutdowns that are now a common tool against popular uprisings?
We just put it on the table, I think.
Okay, did the panel get that? Okay, so now
I'll move it when they
the floor
answer
the floor is
questions.
still open for one more question because we have 2 already. Anybody online? Okay, Julius. Sorry, folks. The room's got it.
Okay, so we're all living through hard times right now, right? And I know that this has been alluded to in all of the speeches about how you keep going. And so I'd like to maybe, if you could elaborate a little bit, like how, on a personal but also political level, like what keeps you going? What keeps the confidence and the compulsion to keep doing what you're doing? And you're all coming to the party from different places, which is amazing. And have been involved for different lengths of time. So I'd really like to know what keeps you motivated.
Okay, so we're going to go back to the panel, and they got 3 questions now. So I'll give them 4 minutes each, and we're going to start with Anne. Then we're going to go to DB, then Rubina, and John. Okay, so Anne, you're up. 4 minutes, dear.
She was having connection issues, so she might not be online right now. She's trying to reconnect, though.
Okay. All right, so we're going to go to DB then.
Sorry, this will just be a sec. Oh, I'm supposed to be answering it, so I thought I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, I'm very, very glad to be able to answer this. So, speaking as someone who has been, seeing so much doxing and so much censorship of organizing from the Palestinian movement in terms of social media, I've seen posts taken down for the most ridiculous of reasons, accounts shut down for months on end, people repeatedly banned and shadow banned. A really good way is, I'm going to be quite frank, I know this sounds so cliche, going it old fashioned, because when we were in the encampment, we were sent in groups, we were sent around to poster, we were sent around to canvass people. These ways, although they are, still censorable, you can't as easily remove all traces of a poster, even if you rip it down, which was good for us because we went back around in all the areas we posted, put more, and then did this with new areas. Whereas if you post online, on Facebook, on Instagram about things you're doing, things you're organizing, when they're taken down, they're down. Like, that's it. You can't repost them and just build off the old one. Whereas when you do this, mortar and pestle, pen, paper posting around, that can't be censored by any kind of, internet effort or government effort really, unless it's just individual people ripping it down. And we got a lot of effective mobilization from our posters, from our word of mouth, from our canvassing of people. So essentially, it's just going it old school, because word of mouth can't be shut down like the internet can. You can't unplug a word of mouth, going around, rather than you can just, shut down the whole world's internet, as I'm sure the people in power could do if, we ever got too strong.
Okay, Rubina?
Oh, it's me?
Well, I think I'll start with the question of what keeps us going. I think examples from the past about, of what has happened, for example, the Russian Revolution, was basically buried by Stalinism. But that Stalinism really was a result in a large way of the imperialist aggression against the early Soviet Republic, because they had a civil war and people were exhausted and they got tired of politics. I mean, interest in politics is hard to keep going if you don't have enough to eat, or you're afraid somebody's going to burn your house down or something like that. So I think looking at examples of what has happened in various situations like that gives you hope for the future. It shows that it can be done, and for us it has to be done, because we're certainly not going to survive climate change and capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. John's question was, I didn't quite get all of it down. But.
What lessons do you draw from the failures of 20th century socialism?
Okay. Well, Stalinism doesn't work. Matter of fact, it's probably lengthened the period in which capitalism was still viable to some extent. That's one. And we've seen many examples where if, independent class politics is really important. Class collaboration always ends up in disaster for the working class. I mean, Chile was a good example of that. If some of the workers' groups had been allowed to arm themselves, they could have been in a defense against that coup. I don't know whether it would have worked or not, but it would have made a big difference. So I think, well, that's about it for me. I don't really know how to deal with the question of the billionaires who control
the internet.
The internet. Remember...
expropriate them.
Oh, yeah. But I remember this wonderful cartoon from Facebook where they were sending all the billionaires to the sun on the rocket. I thought it was an excellent idea.
Okay. Are you finished, John?
Yeah.
Okay. Rubina?
Thank you, John. Good job, you too. Actually, I will start from that part. But recently we have really a huge incident happen in Bangladesh for social media. Around the world, youth help Bangladeshi community to make up, actually to accomplish color revolution. Why? Even my own child said that I am wrong. I said I had experience on it. So I know that more than you, but youth never listen. It happens. It's a energy. So and now curse of the social media benefit and also the curse. They are watching, that is benefit, but of course the people are dying there. Every moment people are dying there now. They're killing people they own, and their program was like set up like that to kill progressive people, and they're killing them. And we don't know how to stop it. So that's the answer, because how we can stop the disaster happening around the world, it will stop. Because now people know where to stop. And I will go the next question to you, Julius. Motivation actually comes, I think it is very personal. For my part is sometimes failoreness, that whenever I am failure, I want to do it more. And I want to see that our children are living in a better world. Not only that, they will follow our footsteps, that we are doing theirs and they will do ours. And they will make a better, but we will continue to fight together. Of course, we learn it from our elders, and our youngest will learn from elders and us. So that's it.
And I would just like to make more remarks. I apologize because I hadn't seen the rest of this conflict, and I thought we were each answering one question at a time, which is why I passed the mic off after one question. I didn't realize we were all answering, all the questions at once. As for what keeps me personally motivated when going, I like to think to myself with this mindset I got in the encampment, as much as it might be demoralizing or painful or whatever to be continuing, how would I feel if I were one of the people that was most badly impacted by this policy? And I was asking myself the same question in the encampment when I was thinking, okay, there's problem after problem, as many other people are thinking, we should give up, they're not listening to us. How would the people in Gaza feel who are being bombed, starved, and sieged on a daily, hourly, even every minute and every second basis if we gave up just because we're facing some issues that are minute compared to what they're facing? The immense global suffering and the horrors brought on by capitalism and aggressive neoliberalism are not going to go away if we just decide to go away when the going gets tough. That is what keeps me going.
Okay, thank you. So, any questions online? I don't see any hands. Pardon me?
We didn't hear back from Anne.
No, she's not online. She's having trouble with the system. I've been watching. Flo, I think it was Flo, let me know. But she's not back. If she comes back, we'll get her to talk and answer whatever question is up at the time. But she's still not back online. Okay, Barry, did I see your hand?
No. I have a suggestion for the chair, though. You might invite people online to tell us about how they became politically active and their perspective on this panel.
Of course. And I would hope that when they put their hand up, they would do that. People have been making interventions all day, not just asking the question. So if anybody online has anything they would like to say, now is the time to do it, because I see no hands, and there's no hands here in the room. So if there's no questions, going once, going twice.
Okay.
Thank you, Barry. Okay, there's always one in every room. Okay.
I'm just going to do it from here.
You can't. They won't hear you online.
Oh, jeez.
Well,
Okay.
he doesn't want you to hear what he has to say, guys.
How do you
How do you think an organization like Socialist Action can be more visible, more able to attract articulate people like you? I'm just blown away. What a terrific set of speeches. Wow. What are we doing that's so right, and what could we do even better to become the party that working people need to vanquish this system and establish a better world?
Okay, so you each have 3 minutes, and we're going to go, just a minute, I want to see if Anne is back. I can't get, oh yes, I can, just a minute. No, I don't see Anne. Okay, so we're going to start with Rubina, and then John, and then DB. And you have 3 minutes if you need it.
Keep continuing what we are doing and phoning me, Barry.
How many times a day?
And no, that's a part of joke, but it is true that we have to, and of course, other thing is that motivation, as Julius said, I learned motivation from you, it's true. I learned that you are a constant fighter, and it is good that when I moved in Canada, I feel that this is a pro-capitalist. They don't understand anything except honestly. I moved to Canada in '98, and to me, I felt that, oh my God, what a nation. They only understand brand name. I said like that way to my ex-husband. That is true. And now I really understand, but John made that comment. It's true. But it is hard to live beside USA, and now I understand why Canada is like that. Because Canadians think they are twin of USA, and they are always following USA. They don't think that they are little separate, or they cannot distinguish themselves psychologically. They have to do it. Otherwise, they will, it will be what it is called that always circle, yeah, always circle. That are we American, or we can be Canadian? Be Canadian. That's really important for Canada. But honestly, I think Barry, what we are doing, that's really very positive, and we need to recognize it is hard to work with intersectionality because that is huge. It's not easy to learn, or easy to work, but more people we can accept from around the world who are moving here. We have to give them ideas that whenever you are moving here with the passport, you are one of us. That's we never felt as an immigrant. We never felt that we are part of this country or this society. But we have to continue. John, that's Socialist Action can do. Thank you.
John?
Okay, actually, I'd like to comment you made first about I hope we should keep doing what we're doing, because I think generally we're doing very well. But I mean, there's always room for improvement. There's always mistakes. So we really have to analyze what we're doing and what we're not doing, and keep going that way.
DB, if you're finished.
Well, I'm really glad that you asked this question, Barry, because since you always ask me at events to, canvass people, try to recruit anyone I know, I really like that you're reflecting on, could we be doing more about this? And honestly, I'm really impressed with SA's presence at really any kind of event I see us picketing. We're at demonstrations. Whatever is going on, you name it, we're at it. So that, I think, is really beneficial, and it is clearly paying off, because I believe you mentioned to me there would be some new comrades here who I would have the chance to meet. Yes, and that just proves that, we're attracting people. But in terms of what we could be doing better, one thing that I like to think of is take a page from your enemy's books. In mainstream politics, a really, effective trick, without commenting on whether it's necessarily good or bad, is pandering to people based on, their personal values. For example, during the election campaign, Trump was putting on a real facade, which, again, I don't believe any of it. I'm only citing it as a prominent recent example, pretending to want peace in the Middle East, pretending to want a ceasefire in Lebanon. Obviously, this is not true. We're obviously better than Trump, so maybe we should reach out to certain already established groups and say, we have certain shared values with you. We're working towards some of these same goals. Why not collaborate on certain things? We can only benefit from it, and we just really need to emphasize what we're, commonly working towards. Because when we look at our similarities, we realize ending up that we're not all that different. So if people can be pulled in by this, which I'm sure they can, we'll definitely grow quite a lot. And I hope that we can have success in implementing this.
Okay, is there anybody else? Waiting for people to think about it a little more. Well, we've come a long ways. 20 years ago, or more than that, I guess, we were doing exactly what we're doing now, putting on conferences like this, but guess what? It was Barry and I doing it. It was just two of us. So we've come a long ways with the membership that we have now. So that means that we didn't give up, and we must have been doing something correct, making mistakes along the way, of course. But nevertheless, look where we are now, and we're still growing. It's still a long road ahead, but we have to remember when we're bringing in new members as well. We're bringing them in at different levels of politics, different experiences. Some are coming in that's been around the political scene for a long, long time and know probably a lot more than we do. But we also got some that know they want to change the world, they don't know how, and they never heard of Trotsky. Okay? So you have to take them and you have to work with comrades at your own pace. You can't force it, you can't rush it. You have to work with every individual differently. Anyway, that's how I see it. So I think we've come a long ways, comrades, and we've got a long ways to go, but we will win in the end. So. Anyway, I don't see anybody else. Don't see anybody else with your hands. Yes, Judy, go ahead.
I've been in politics for
50 or 60 years?
25 years, 50, no. Longer than that, 30.
You've been in the movement for over 50 years, comrade.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, I haven't been in the movement for over 50 years because a lot of the time I wasn't in the political movement. They kicked me out of some League for Social Action because I was had problems. They didn't want me in the. They found an excuse to kick me out because I was going crazy at that time. With all the ins and outs, and so I joined many different movements. Barry asked me a few times whether or not I wanted to join Socialist Action, and I always said no. I want to have a chance just to do other political work. And then it was so I think it was.
I will tell you what Judy's saying, maybe. Go ahead, Judy.
I think it was in the early 2000s. I finally joined Socialist Action again. I was out of the movement for maybe 20 years, doing different things, many different things. disabled work for the Nicaraguan Revolution, feminism, all kinds of different things. And I want to have time to readjust. I would like to say that there's no guarantee that socialist action will always be a healthy political movement. It takes people in there that can make socialist action stay on track. But it's so easy for a group to get off track.
Okay, well, thank you, comrade. I'm going to try to explain. Sorry, there's no microphone for Judy because the cords won't reach, and she's in a walker. It's difficult to get around. But she just told us that she's been in the movement for 50 years, wasn't treated very well in some of the movements which she was in, as some of us can testify to that. But she stuck there. She always wanted to be in the movement, and she joined Socialist Action. And she is on lots of occasions the glue over the years that held Socialist Action together. So thank you, Judy. Thank you. So I think I don't see any other end, so I think that's probably.
Can I say something for Judy?
Yes.
Just one line.
1 minute, Rubina.
Thank you, Judy. Actually, you are my inspiration. Wherever I join, I saw you, and I know. And Barry gave me the booklet you wrote. There is a one article from you, and you are my inspiration. I always respect you. Thank you.
Okay, and a big thank you to all the comrades that participated, our speakers, and all of those online that asked questions, and everybody. So I'm going to adjourn now because there's no other speakers. So thank you to everybody, and we will. And remember, at least for Toronto, of course, you people have to. You comrades out west can fly in for the social. We won't stop you. Thanks for everything. So the social is going to take place. The annual pre-holiday social will be in Toronto on Saturday, December the 7th, and it's going to be held right here in the hall. It won't be online. No, it's in person. So like you said, those who can come, please come. And that's it. Have a good rest of the weekend, comrades, and we'll see you all around.